I knew from a very early age actually. I think actually I started, from the point I started looking at attractions in other people, and I knew that my attractions were always towards men.
I suppose I knew from a very early age. I was quite curious and I did have some girlfriends, but I always knew that something was a little bit different.
It's not uncommon for young people to experiment either way, and I definitely was experimenting with both.
We have very, very strong evidence of a link between mental ill health and homophobia.
Well, originally I'm from Yellingbo, which is a pretty small country town. Basically, we've had quite old-fashioned parents. Had two brothers. I'm the youngest of three boys. I have a gay brother. Through primary school, I had quite a good circle of friends. There was, of course, no worries about anything. High school, I sort of tended to hang around more girls than I did the guys. I did try to play football, but I felt a little bit outed by some of the guys that were in the teams. So I just got along better with the girls.
My name's Gary. I'm from Manchester in the north of England. I have 3 siblings, 2 brothers, 1 sister. We come from a broken family, and we're brought up by my father, who's gay, and our mother left home when I was about 6 years old, and my father raised us on his own as an open gay father. My siblings, 2 brothers and 1 sister, still live in England, and they have partners and children. I was an absolute nightmare at school. I probably would be described by my teachers as the devil child. I was very confrontational. I had no boundaries with teachers. I had no boundaries with colleagues in school. I used to always get into fights. If anyone would say anything wrong with me, I'd snap, and there'd be a brawl in the playground. Teachers would be fearful of having me in their class. And as they like to say, Gary, always the clown jester. In my first year of high school, I actually got expelled from high school, and that was from fighting with my teacher.
My name is Abby G. I grew up in Millicent in the southeast, in South Australia. I didn't come out at an early age so much as I was aware that I was attracted to girls when I was a girl, but it was kind of quite liberal, and it's not uncommon for young people to experiment either way, and I definitely was experimenting with both. But I definitely knew that there was an attraction there, but it didn't really consolidate until I was in my teenage years, and then it was confusing because I basically wasn't sure if I could be attracted to women and be the gender that I was. So that was the thing. I would often, and I have no desire to be a boy, but when you're a young girl, you kind of think, well, do I need to be a boy in order to be attracted to girls?
I suppose I knew from a very early age. I was quite curious and I did have some girlfriends, but I always knew that something was a little bit different. Like it or not, I suppose I was a little bit more attracted to male guys than I was for girls. Never thought it would go away. In fact, I pretty much knew from an early age that I was definitely gay. I suppose growing up in a small country town, it was just knowing on who I had to talk to about that kind of thing, because at the time I could obviously not talk to my parents. And that was very difficult for me originally. I suppose when I was a little bit older, I had the opportunity to meet some gay people, and there were support networks which helped me a great deal. Yeah, originally it was probably a little bit more difficult than what it is for kids today, I suppose.
Yeah, I used to, in terms of, I used to bully children who were what I define as weaker than me when I was a child. People who maybe didn't have confidence, didn't have the socialising skills. I kind of one of these people who was continually expelled, continually naughty, continually cheeky in class, continually fighting. So therefore with that brought a lot of people not laughing with me but laughing at me, and obviously brought kind of top dog and kind of status. But yeah, if I saw some people weak at school, or if someone said the word wrong about me, or say anything wrong about my brothers and sisters, and quite often said things about my dad being gay, then yeah, I'd bully, I'd fight quite a lot.
Well, the really good thing about my mother raised me, so my father wasn't active in my upbringing at all, but the really good thing is that I knew that my mum was okay with those concepts. You know, she's a very open-minded woman, and you know, we were raised to be open to everyone pretty much, and that was racially, that was sexual orientation, that was everything. So I knew that she would be okay with it, but I was, and I didn't realise until I actually did come out to her that my issue was not my gender or my orientation so much as the fact that I had to admit that I was sexual to a parent.
My brother's gay as well, so seeing what he went through when he was quite young was very difficult for me. He was kicked out of home, I suppose, when he was about 17, 18. And the way that my parents took that was pretty harsh at the time. And I suppose I swore I would never be able to tell them after that.
Probably the most powerful reason why homophobia is so dangerous for young people is that, unlike other minority groups, ethnic minority groups, whatever, usually young people share that minority status with their parents, and their parents teach them to be proud in their difference. These young people most likely have heterosexual parents, and those heterosexual parents expect their children to grow up heterosexual. So the sort of alienation that homophobia produces is quite complete in some young people. Now, I argue, put a heterosexual young person into that same situation and you will find exactly the same thing happen. Once a young person has their community taken away from them, the trust, the reciprocity that's taken away, that happens with homophobia, damage can happen. We all know the importance for our mental health of community, trust, of reciprocity, of being valued. Once that goes, it's very hard terrain for a young person to manage.
I actually wanted to tell my father when I was 14, 15, and I waited in my mind, I waited until I was 17, because in my mind 17 was a lot older and adult compared to 15 or 16. And then when I actually got to my 17th birthday, I'd had a letter wrote out to my father for about 9 months. I'd had this letter wrote, and one day I just thought, okay, I'm 17 now, I'll just have to do this. Put it under his pillow, went to work. And then that's when all fireworks started.
I think kids go through a lot of emotions. Guilt, I suppose for me, was a big part. And also what to a lot of parents being gay represents. A lot of parents do think that kids, are more feminine, and they perceive a certain image, and it's just not true. There's a lot of gay guys that are labourers, electricians, and so on. And I've got a cleaning business, and we all, it's very diverse. So I suppose it's just very hard to try to educate family, your parents, on that it's all okay,
I was actually never teased at school except for one time, and I actually didn't know what the word meant, and it was all about tone when you're a kid. So these two older kids had called my friend and I think that they called us lemons, and their tone was what I had no idea what a lemon was, and we were just friends, but I was horrified by the tone and the fact that they were really picking on us over it, and I don't know, I was offended and I didn't know the meaning of the word. So I think young people will pick on you regardless, whether it's because you're a bit overweight or whether because you're potentially gay or it's because you're any reason at all, including what you're wearing that day. So I think accepting that young people can be a bit cruel and you might be picked on for a particular thing kind of gives you some comfort knowing that everyone's an easy mark for something. And you know, the term gay, you're so gay, is, or that's gay, is misused. No one actually really thinks about the homosexual connotation. That's just a derogatory term.
What we found was that young people who did not report suffering from homophobic abuse, 20% of them had thought about or succeeded in self-harm. Of those who had suffered verbal abuse but not physical abuse, 40% reported self-harm or self-harm ideation. Of those who'd suffered physical assault because of their sexuality, 60% had either attempted suicide, thought about it, or whatever. So those findings are very strong. And we also asked young people to explain why, you know, or explain more, tell us more about your answer. You know, young people say things like, well, you know, when the whole world's telling you that you're disgusting, you start to feel disgusting. Or one young man said, I realised my same-sex attraction, and at the same time I thought about my religious upbringing, my religious beliefs. He said, I went hardcore Christian and hated myself for a few years. So there's that sense that, you know, what are you going to do with those really negative beliefs? And some young people will turn them on themselves for a while.
In the end, a couple of weeks later, I had to leave home. And I a few weeks after I was 17, I met a guy. We moved in together almost instantly, just because my dad was not accepting of me being gay. He did not want me to lead a gay life. In his eyes, he turned me gay and did not want that, and was trying to do anything in his power in order to turn me straight, which obviously was never going to happen.
For me, it was absolutely a double life for probably about 8-10 years before I actually could come out and say that I was gay. And from the day that I told him, it was probably the biggest weight off my shoulders. Mum took it surprisingly well, and even followed through with a couple of questions, being curious about the whole thing, which was a big shock.
It did take a few years for the relationship with my father and I. Then we were able to build a relationship whereby he looked up to me, and okay, you know, I left home and I'd say who I was, and I was confident in who I am. And then started to build my own life, and it did take a few years for our relationship to get back on track. In
my early years of high school, there was a young guy that actually committed suicide in Year 7. And he was bullied often, and it was quite sad because I never felt that I could offer that support, because I was, I suppose, scared what it was going to be interpreted against me. But it was very upsetting to see and hear that he actually passed away. I think
the reason why there's such a high proportion of people that, and it's particularly young men, that commit suicide over feelings of potentially being gay, and that's another thing. It's actually even a potential. They're not actually developed enough in some respects to know either way. I think it's about fear and alienation. I think there's an absolute isolation that happens when you're contemplating your sexuality, and a fear that potentially that you are, and it could just be experimentation, but I think, you know, other people's perception is what makes it so damaging.
I've always challenged my brothers on their kind of stereotypical that, okay, that typically people are limp-wristed and effeminate, and okay, we'll accept you because you're my brother who's straight acting. I've always challenged that because, I mean, as you know, it's okay to be it's okay to be straight acting. It's okay to be acting, and it's okay just to be yourself. And that whether you're feminine, whether you're fat, whether you're slim, whether you're goth, whether you're whatever, it's fine. That's as long as you're yourself and you're your own person and you believe in who you are, then surely that's what matters.
And you'll see that chapter 14 is strategies for responding to homophobic bullying. All students, including gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender and intersex students in Victorian government schools, have a right to feel safe at school and be free from bullying. And this page goes on to talk about what to do, what the department expects. And what it expects is that homophobic bullying will be addressed and will be stopped. So if you're a young person in a Victorian school, and hopefully in other states as well, and you're having problems with homophobia and your school won't do anything, look up your policies and you might be very surprised. So this is one in Victoria that came out in 2006.
You know, my gay male friends don't wear hot pants and dance on tables. They're men, you know, with fur and, you know, large trucks and, you know, like concreters and bricklayers and shearers and all of those things. And that's just true. It is a fact that if you are not comfortable with your orientation and you're picking on someone for it, you potentially, and this is from a psychology point of view, are gay or have substantial gay thoughts that you're trying to repress yourself.
Look, there's just so much support network out there, so much more than what I ever had when I was a kid. Should never give up. In fact, just be strong and make the call, because it's just such a waste of life, and every person on this planet has a right to live a happy and normal life. And my life is normal, what I would class normal. I'm very happy. And I wouldn't give it up for the world. Sometimes words can hurt so much more than what a punch can. It can be so emotionally scarring, especially when you're young. It's just, everyone's got different levels of pressure that they can take. A lot of kids, you know, find it very, very difficult, and it's extremely hard for them to get through, you know, day to day being bullied at school, and it's just not right.
So as a former bully, and sat here now being someone who's gay and who is their self, if someone had told me that the words that I'd said at school or the bullying, although that I wasn't targeting anyone who was gay, but any form of bullying, if someone had told me that potentially could force someone to take their life, or have just a small part in someone taking their life, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. And I ask you, is that joke, or is that, you know, messing around with your friends, or, I mean, look at the person next to you. That kind of getting one up on someone, is it really worth it?